You'll never amount to anything. The words cut through the sound of glasses clinking. My father stood at the head of the table at my cousin's engagement dinner, smiling like he had just told a joke. His hand rested on the back of my chair. His fingers squeezed once, tight enough for me to feel it. "This one," he said, nodding at me. "She's still figuring life out." Meanwhile, Tyler owns a condo at 26. A few people laughed. Someone coughed. My aunt stared at her plate. My face burned, but I didn't move. In that second, I saw it clearly. He wasn't teasing. He wasn't worried. He enjoyed it. He liked reminding everyone that I was the disappointment. And as the room filled with awkward smiles, I realized something else. He didn't want me to rise. He wanted me small. I smiled. That was what shocked him. I picked up my glass and lifted it toward my cousin and her fiancé. "To love and new beginnings," I said, steady and calm. My father watched me, waiting for tears, waiting for anger. He got neither. Inside, though, something cracked open. All my life, I had tried to prove him wrong. Better grades, better jobs, better manners. I thought if I just worked harder, he would finally say he was proud. That night, I stopped trying. I didn't argue on the drive home. I didn't text anyone to complain. I sat on my bed in my small Chicago apartment and replayed his words. "You'll never amount to anything." For the first time, I didn't feel crushed. I felt clear. I would not fight him. I would outgrow him. My name is Natalie Whitmore. I was 29, white, raised in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. From the outside, my life looked fine. Good job. Clean apartment. No scandals. I worked in corporate brand strategy at a mid-sized consumer goods company. I wasn't famous. I wasn't rich. But I was not lost. Still, in my father's eyes, I was always second place. My younger brother, Tyler, was the golden child. He was charming, loud, confident. Dad loved that. Tyler worked in sales and talked big about deals and bonuses. Dad repeated every word like it was a headline. When I changed jobs twice in 3 years to move up faster, Dad called me unstable. What he never noticed was simple. Each move doubled my salary. Each risk made me sharper. I had been building something quietly. He just never looked close enough to see it. Tyler could breathe and Dad would clap. When Tyler bought his condo, Dad told everyone at church. "That's my boy," he said. "Smart with money. Focused." When I moved into my apartment closer to downtown for work, Dad asked how long I would rent before settling down. Tyler's mistakes were learning moments. Mine were proof I lacked direction. At family dinners, Dad asked Tyler about investments and future plans. When it was my turn, he asked if I was happy yet. The worst part wasn't the comparison. It was the public part. He needed an audience. And at that engagement dinner, he made sure everyone saw me as the weak one. What he didn't know was this. I had stopped needing his approval. And that made me dangerous. 2 weeks after that dinner, something big happened at work. Our vice president called an emergency meeting. The whole strategy team packed into the glass conference room. "We've been invited to pitch a full rebrand," he said. "Global lifestyle company. Major reach. If we win this, it changes everything." The room went quiet. "This won't just be a campaign," he continued. "The client wants a real face. A brand ambassador tied to the strategy." My heart pounded. Whoever led the winning framework would become that face. High risk. High visibility. Senior strategists shifted in their chairs. Some looked excited. Others nervous. I felt something else. Ready. Before I could overthink it, I raised my hand. "I want to lead the strategy proposal," I said. Every head turned toward me. After the meeting, my manager, Thomas, closed his office door. "You understand what you just did?" he asked. "Yes. You'll be competing against people with 10 more years of experience." "I know." He studied my face like he was searching for doubt. "This could make your career. Or it could stall it." I thought of my father's voice at the dinner table. I thought of the laughter. "I'm willing to take that risk," I said. Thomas leaned back in his chair. "Then do it right. No shortcuts." That night, I stayed late, but not to impress anyone. I stayed because I saw the pattern. The client's brand had dropped in engagement. Their message felt old. Safe. Forgettable. I didn't need to shout louder. I needed to make them real. and I knew exactly how to start. When I got home, I wrote my father's words on a sticky note. "You'll never amount to anything." I stuck it above my desk. Not to hurt myself, to remind myself. Every time I felt tired, I looked at it. Every time I doubted an idea, I looked at it. But I didn't let anger lead me. Anger burns fast. I chose control. I spent nights studying the client's past campaigns. I tracked data trends. I read customer reviews. People wanted honesty. They wanted connection. The brand needed a human voice. Not a model. Not a celebrity. A real strategist who believed in the message. I built a plan that tied numbers to emotion. Facts to feeling. I didn't chase applause. I chased impact. And I knew if I delivered that, no one could ignore me. The day of the pitch arrived faster than I expected. Senior strategists went before me. Their slides were polished. Safe. Predictable. When my turn came, I stood up and walked to the screen. I didn't rush. I didn't perform. I spoke clearly. I showed the data first. Declining engagement. Confused messaging. Lost trust. Then I showed the solution. A full rebrand built around transparency. Real stories. Real faces. One strong voice leading it all. Mine. I explained why the brand needed someone who understood the strategy from the inside. Someone who could speak both numbers and emotion. When I finished, the room went silent. Not awkward silent. Focused silent. And for the first time in my career, I felt completely steady. 3 days later, Thomas called me in. "We're going with your framework," he said. I didn't breathe for a second. "The client loved the authenticity," he continued. "They want you to present it directly to their executive board." My hands felt cold. "And if they approve the final rollout," he added, "you'll become the official brand ambassador for North America." I nodded slowly. This wasn't luck. This was preparation meeting opportunity. That night, Tyler called my father complaining about work. I overheard part of it when Dad mentioned it later. Missed quotas. Pressure. A warning from his boss. Dad told him to push harder. He didn't mention that Tyler had been put on probation. Families hide weakness differently. I stayed quiet. I had a presentation to prepare. And this time, the stakes were global. The client presentation happened over video with executives in New York and London. I wore a simple navy suit. No bright colors. No drama. I spoke about rebuilding trust. About long-term growth instead of quick spikes. About consistency. They asked hard questions. I answered calmly. When it ended, one of the executives smiled and said, "You believe this, don't you?" "Yes," I replied. A week later, we got the call. Approved. Full rollout. And they wanted me as the face. Internal email went out that afternoon. Natalie Whitmore appointed brand ambassador for North American launch. I stared at the screen. 4 years. I had been figuring it out. Now, I was leading something global. I didn't call my father. I didn't need to. The work would speak soon enough. The first billboard went up downtown a month later. I stood across the street, coat zipped, wind brushing my hair back. My face filled the space above the traffic. Confident. Calm. Professional. The tagline beneath it read about growth and bold direction. People stopped to look. Some took pictures. I didn't feel proud in a loud way. I felt grounded. This wasn't fame. It was alignment. An online business journal ran a feature about the campaign. They asked about my journey. I kept it simple. I learned early that doubt can be fuel, I said. I didn't mention my father's name. I didn't need to. At home, he saw the billboard too. My aunt texted me that he went quiet during dinner when someone brought it up. Silence can be louder than laughter. Around the same time, cracks began to show in my father's world. The year before, he had refinanced our childhood home. He pulled equity to help Tyler start a side business. Tyler had promised big returns. The business failed within months. Now the mortgage payments had jumped. Dad never admitted stress. He carried pride like armor. But my aunt let it slip one afternoon. "He's under pressure," she said softly. "The house payments are heavy." I didn't celebrate that. I just listened. A few weeks later, I drove past the house I grew up in. There was a real estate sign on the lawn. My chest tightened, but not from sadness, from realization. The house had always been his proof of success, his symbol, and now it was slipping. Not because of me. Because of choices. And choices of consequences. At work, headquarters announced expansion. They needed housing in certain neighborhoods for executives tied to major campaigns. One of those neighborhoods sounded familiar. My old one. Close to good schools. Strong resale value. Easy access to the city. I felt a strange calm settle over me. Opportunity rarely knocks twice. I scheduled a meeting with HR. If I take on the expanded ambassador role and relocation duties, I asked, would I qualify for the executive housing program? They reviewed my contract. Yes, they said. You would. The program allowed the company to purchase approved homes under corporate relocation agreements. Clean. Legal. Efficient. I didn't mention my father's address. I didn't need to. I just submitted the paperwork to expand my role. Within days, it was approved, and the wheels began to turn. The company's acquisition team reviewed several properties. My childhood home met every requirement. Square footage, condition, location. An offer was submitted under corporate purchase terms. Competitive, straightforward, quick closing. My father didn't know it was connected to me. To him, it was just a buyer who could move fast. He accepted within days. No negotiation. Relief disguised as confidence. When I saw the acceptance notice through HR, I sat back in my chair and closed my eyes. I wasn't stealing anything. I wasn't tricking anyone. I was stepping into an opportunity earned by years of quiet work. The girl who would never amount to anything was now the reason a global company trusted that address. And for the first time, I felt the past loosening its grip. Closing day arrived quietly. I didn't attend in person. Corporate transactions rarely required it. My father had already moved into a smaller rental across town. He told relatives it was temporary. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. A week later, HR handed me a folder with relocation documents. The address printed clearly on the page. My childhood home. I drove there alone. The house stood empty. Quiet. Waiting. I walked through the living room where he once laughed at my lack of direction. The floors creaked the same way, but the air felt different. Lighter. This house no longer symbolized his approval. It symbolized my growth. I didn't call him. I didn't send a message. I didn't need closure. The truth was simple. He had said I would never amount to anything. And without raising my voice once, I had proven him wrong. Standing in that empty living room, I let the silence settle around me. Sunlight fell through the same front window where I used to wait for the school bus. The walls still held faint marks from where our family photos had once hung. I walked into the kitchen and ran my hand along the counter. I remembered sitting there at 16, telling Dad I wanted to study marketing. He had laughed and said, "Pick something real." Now, my not real career had brought me back here in a way none of us could have imagined. I didn't feel the need to redecorate right away. I just stood there and let the moment sink in. This house had once felt like a stage where I was always failing an invisible test. Now it felt like proof. Not that I was better than him, but that I had finally become enough for myself. News about my promotion kept spreading. The campaign expanded beyond North America. My face appeared in online ads, magazine spreads, and short interviews. I traveled to New York twice in 1 month to speak at internal leadership meetings. Each time I walked into those boardrooms, I reminded myself of that engagement dinner. Of the laughter. It kept me humble. It kept me sharp. Meanwhile, Tyler's situation grew worse. His company cut staff, and he was among them. Dad stopped mentioning his brilliant future. Conversations shifted to tough markets and bad timing. I didn't comment. When relatives asked how work was going, I answered politely. I didn't brag. I didn't exaggerate. I had learned something important. True success doesn't need to shout. It moves quietly and changes everything. And slowly, I felt the balance of power in our family shifting. One Sunday afternoon, my aunt invited both me and Dad for lunch at her house. It was the first time we had been in the same room since the dinner. He looked older, tired around the eyes. We spoke about simple things at first. Weather, traffic, work. Then my aunt mentioned the campaign. "I saw your billboard downtown," she said to me, smiling. "It's beautiful." Dad's fork paused midair. I felt the weight of his silence. "That's impressive," he finally said. not looking directly at me. 2 words. No joke. No sarcasm. Impressive. It wasn't an apology. But it was different. I nodded. Thank you. We didn't dig deeper. We didn't need to. Sometimes change doesn't come in big speeches. Sometimes it comes in small, careful words. And that was the first crack in the wall he had built around me. A few weeks later, I moved officially into the house under the company's relocation plan. The agreement allowed me to reside there as part of my expanded ambassador role. Unpacking felt strange. I placed my work awards on a shelf where old family photos once stood. I set up a small office in the room that used to be mine. The sticky note with Dad's words, "You'll never amount to anything," was still in my planner. I unfolded it and stared at it one last time. It had done its job. I tore it in half and threw it away. Not out of anger. Out of growth. That sentence no longer fueled me. I didn't need it anymore. My worth was no longer a reaction to his doubt. It stood on its own. And for the first time in my life, I slept in that house without feeling judged. The campaign hit a major milestone at the 3-month mark. Sales increased. Engagement doubled. The global headquarters sent a formal letter praising the North American launch. At a company event, I stood on stage and spoke about teamwork and long-term thinking. The applause felt warm, not overwhelming. Afterward, Thomas pulled me aside. "You've changed the trajectory of this division," he said. "You earned this." Those words mattered more than applause. Earned. Not gifted. Not lucky. Earned. Later that night, I drove back to the house. The porch light glowed softly. I realized something simple but powerful. My father had always measured success by ownership, house, car, status. I had learned to measure it by growth and integrity. And now, without chasing revenge, I had both. The house was no longer a symbol of his approval. It was a symbol of my independence. Tyler called me unexpectedly one evening. We hadn't spoken much in months. "Hey," he said, voice softer than usual. "I heard you're living back in the old place." "Through work, yes," I replied. He was quiet for a moment. "That's impressive." There it was again. That word. "I'm proud of you," he added quickly. I didn't sense jealousy. I sensed reflection. "How are you?" I asked. He admitted he was searching for a new job. Starting over. For the first time, we spoke as equals, not competitors in our father's shadow. After the call, I sat on the back steps of the house. Maybe the real shift wasn't about winning. Maybe it was about breaking a pattern. Dad had built a system of comparison, but I didn't have to continue it. Success wasn't about standing above someone. It was about standing firm in yourself. Months passed, and the campaign continued to grow. I traveled often, but always returned to the same front door. One evening, as I watered the small garden by the porch, a neighbor walked over. "I remember you," she said. "You grew up here, didn't you?" "Yes," I replied. She smiled. "Your father was always so proud of this house." I nodded slowly. "I hope you're proud too," she added. I looked at the windows, the roof, the quiet street. "I am," I said. "For different reasons." She didn't know the full story. She didn't need to. This house no longer represented pressure or comparison. It represented resilience. It represented patience. And most of all, it represented the quiet power of proving something to yourself without tearing anyone else down. One afternoon, I found myself standing in the same dining room where Dad had once hosted holiday dinners full of subtle comparisons. I remembered sitting at that table, listening to praise for Tyler while I swallowed my questions. Now the room was empty except for a simple wooden table I had chosen myself. No heavy decorations. No loud statements. Just space. I understood something deeply in that moment. He had never meant to destroy me. He believed he was motivating me, pushing me. But the method had left scars. The difference was this. I had chosen to turn those scars into strength. He had chosen pride. And pride had cost him more than money. It had cost him connection. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt distance. Healthy distance. Sometimes freedom isn't loud. It's quiet and steady. The final twist came when the company offered to sell the property to me directly after the relocation period ended. It was standard practice for executives tied to long-term projects. I reviewed the documents carefully. Financially, it made sense. Emotionally, it felt right. I signed. This time, not as part of a corporate program, but as the owner. The day the deed transferred into my name, I sat at the kitchen counter and let the weight of it settle. No applause, no audience, just me. I thought of that engagement dinner again, of the laughter, of the heat rising in my cheeks, and I realized something important. If he had never said those words, I might not have pushed this hard. His doubt had been a spark, but my discipline had been the engine. And engines move mountains. I never called him to announce the purchase. He never called to ask. We moved into a new rhythm, polite, distant, stable. At the next family gathering, no one compared me to Tyler. No one made jokes about figuring it out. The shift was complete, not because I demanded respect, but because I earned it. Standing in the doorway of the house one evening, I watched the sun set over the same quiet street. I thought about the girl who once sat at that engagement dinner, frozen and humiliated. She thought she had lost something that night. She hadn't. She had gained clarity. My father said I would never amount to anything. A few weeks later, I became the brand ambassador of a global company. And in time, I bought the house he once used as proof of his success. Not out of revenge, but out of growth. Sometimes the best answer is not a comeback. It's a life well built.